Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Young and Restless is rewriting history in a big way, and for what? In this week's Young and Restless soapbox column, my colleague Candy groused, and understandably so, that the terrible thing that Mariah did while out of town had taken place off screen. As if viewers wouldn't want to watch actual drama unfold. But what struck me wasn't that, by now I'm used to this show avoiding excitement at every turn. It was Sharon's reassurance of her daughter. One bad act, the therapist insisted, doesn't make Mariah a bad person. Man, okay, but how about a whole bunch of them? I'll grant you, having a psycho like Ian Ward as a guiding force in her life would have warped anybody. But Mariah has a long history of misdeeds, from her criminal past in Portland to her deal with Victor to gaslight Sharon by pretending to be Cassie. Whether we forget it now, the show has altogether forgotten the fact that Mariah stalked ex-fiancé Tyler after cheating on him. She also terrorized his then significant other Abby. And once Mariah got together with Tessa, she cheated on her, too. Remember Lindsay? Some of us do. For some reason, Young and Restless has also decided to whitewash Tessa's checkered past. Sharon reminded Mariah that her wife was kind and good. Is she though? Sure, she's been on the straight and narrow for a while now, but once upon a time Tessa was hell on wheels. She didn't even need the wheels. Do we need to do a flashback to the time that, during Taraya's relationship, Tessa blackmailed Nikki into paying her $250,000 to keep from revealing evidence that she'd been involved into JT's death? These characters are supremely flawed, damaged, even. And that's okay. That makes them terrific for a soap. So why is Young and Restless trying to rewrite history and tidy up the messiness to make them both out of be saints? There's an unspoken agreement between daytime dramas and their most loyal fans. We suspend disbelief, we tolerate Sorosing soap opera rapid aging syndrome, we overlook the occasional resurrection from the dead, all for the reward of good storytelling. But even that goodwill has its limits. In recent months, The Young and the Restless has been engaging in a quiet, yet jarring revisionist history project, one that has longtime viewers wondering if the writers have forgotten the past or worse, chosen to ignore it entirely. And that raises the question. What are we doing this for? A legacy built on memory. Y&R is a soap that has thrived on its rich, layered history. It's been on the air since 1973, over 50 years of passion, betrayal, ambition, and redemption. Part of what's kept fans invested for so long is the show's ability to honor its history while continuing to evolve. Whether it's the Abbott family's cosmetics empire or the Newman dynasty's ruthless business dealings, the tapestry of Genoa City has always been held together by a sense of continuity. So when that continuity begins to fray, it's not just a creative choice, it's a breach of trust. The latest offender, Diane Jenkins' resurrection. Let's start with one of the most obvious and controversial examples, Diane Jenkins. When she was killed off back in 2011, the storyline was final, tragic, and anchored in the show's reality. Viewers mourned, moved on, and digested the consequences. But fast forward more than a decade later, and she's back not in spirit, not in flashback, but living, breathing, and rewriting her legacy. Her return didn't just stretch credibility. It rewrote the emotional aftermath of her death. Her son, Kyle, built his entire adult persona on the grief of losing his mother. Jack Abbott's regrets, Victor's enmity, all were deeply tied to Diane's demise. And now we're expected to accept that she faked her death to escape the pressures of Genoa City. This isn't just a twist, it's narrative gaslighting. The show attempted to paper over the cracks by crafting a backstory involving Jeremy Stark and a faked murder scene. But that doesn't explain away the betrayal fans feel when character development and emotional arcs are yanked out from under them. When Sharon isn't Sharon anymore. Another glaring example is the revision of Sharon Collins Newman's past. Sharon has always been one of Y&R's most complex characters. A small-town girl turned Genoa City socialite, a woman who's struggled with mental illness, love, and loss. But recently, the show has been brushing over the parts of Sharon's life that made her a fan favorite. Gone are references to her deep connection with Cassie, the daughter she lost in a tragic accident. We rarely see the fire in her, the same fire that once stood up to Victor, challenged Phyllis, and held her own as a Newman. Instead, Sharon has been relegated to a support role, doling out advice over coffee and rarely taking center stage. Worse still, the show occasionally contradicts her character's history, as though her past struggles, including her time as CEO of Newman Enterprises and her bipolar diagnosis, are minor footnotes rather than formative milestones. The erasure isn't just disappointing. It's disrespectful to fans who stood by her through the worst. Devon's paternity, a subtle but significant shift. Then there's the curious case of Devon Hamilton. Once introduced as the long-lost grandson of Catherine Chancellor, Devon's arc was one of the most meaningful in recent Y&R history. His transformation from a troubled teen in foster care to a music mogul was compelling, but it was his deep bond with Catherine that gave the story heart. So why is it that in more recent episodes, that connection has all but vanished? Catherine's memory and legacy is rarely mentioned. And when it is, it's often through the lens of business, not emotion. It's as though the writers are slowly pivoting Devon into a completely different lineage, one more attached to the Winters family and less to the Chancellors. This might make sense if it were a conscious decision to strengthen his bond with Lily and Nate, but even those relationships feel sanitized and oversimplified. The richness of his past, including the pain, betrayal, and redemption, is being whitewashed for the sake of plot convenience. Phyllis Summers. A study in contradictions. Phyllis Summers is another character who seems to suffer from selective memory loss. Once the quintessential vixen, a woman who could manipulate, seduce, and scheme with the best of them, Phyllis has always walked a fine line between anti-hero and protagonist. But today's Phyllis seems confused. One day she's advocating for honesty and integrity, the next she's faking her own death. Her motivations flip with the wind. The writers have taken her most memorable qualities, her cunning, her sensuality, her brilliance, and reduced them to caricature. Even her once electric rivalry with Christine feels more like a footnote than the animating fire it once was. Most frustrating is how the show pretends as if Phyllis's history with characters like Danny Romalotti or Jack Abbott is little more than a passing fancy. Fans who remember their tumultuous, passionate entanglements are left scratching their heads. Are we supposed to forget all that just because the writers did? The Neil Winters conundrum. Then there's the delicate subject of Neil Winters. After the heartbreaking passing of actor Christophe St. John, Y&R did a remarkable job of honoring him with a heartfelt tribute and a special storyline. But since then, his memory has largely faded from the show. With the introduction of newer Winters family members and storylines focusing on Nate's ambition and Devon's business dealings, Neil's influence has been all but erased. For longtime fans, this feels not just like rewriting history, but erasing a core pillar of it. Neil's struggles with addiction, his loyalty to Victor, his love for Drusilla, all helped shape the show's emotional core. Now those layers are barely referenced, if at all. Why rewrite history? So why is The Young and the Restless doing this? Is it creative exhaustion? A desire to simplify the narrative for newer viewers? Or is it something deeper, a shift in philosophy away from character-based storytelling and toward shock value plotting? The most generous interpretation is that the writers want to create fresh avenues without being burdened by decades of continuity. That's understandable. Soap storytelling is a marathon, not a sprint. But erasing the past to make room for the future is not the answer. The best soaps, including Y&R at its peak, have always found a way to honor the past while moving forward. Consider how shows like Days of Our Lives or General Hospital have integrated legacy characters and history into modern storylines. They don't shy away from complicated backstories. They embrace them. In doing so, they not only maintain continuity but deepen viewer investment. The emotional cost. At its core, rewriting history isn't just a narrative choice, it's an emotional betrayal. Fans invest time, energy, and love into these characters. They remember scenes from decades ago not just because they were well written, but because they mattered. When the show rewrites the past, it sends a message. Your memory of this doesn't matter. We decide what's real now. That's a dangerous precedent to set, especially for a medium that relies so heavily on audience loyalty. What can be done? It's not too late. The show can course correct, and there are glimmers of hope. When characters like Tracy Abbott are given screen time, the show regains its emotional grounding. When Victor Newman reflects on his long journey from orphan to mogul, it feels like we're home again. The solution isn't to keep everything the same forever. Change is inevitable. But evolution doesn't have to mean erasure. Rewriting history for convenience or cheap thrills risks alienating the very people who kept the show afloat for 5 decades. The viewers deserve better. Soap fans are among the most loyal viewers in television. They remember the smallest details, quote lines from scenes aired 20 years ago, and form emotional bonds with characters most people think of as fiction. They're not asking for perfection, they're asking for respect. Respect for the story. Respect for the characters. Respect for the journey. As The Young and the Restless continues to chart its path through the ever-changing landscape of daytime television, it would do well to remember the old adage. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, or worse, to erase what made them great in the first place.